Vocabulary, vocabulary, and more vocabulary is what you first need in order to pass your real estate exam and understand the concepts. So we will continue with vocabulary. The last one we did was in June or July, somewhere around there. Okay. So we're starting out with vocabulary 251. Hey, and I'm a little delayed today, so not to worry. We'll get it done. Okay, well, here we go. So anyway, first of all, this is Wild Lily Handy coming to you from San Antonio, Texas with whom? YouTube Agent Prep. All right. So tenancy by the entirety. What does that mean? Or actually, you all like to see the definition first, right? Type of property ownership by legally married spouses for property acquired during the marriage. So what is the type of ownership? Remember, there are 4 different types of ownership. So you've got severalty, tenancy by in common, tenancy by the entirety, and joint tenancy, right? So this is for legally married spouses. Hi, Cindy. Well, I wish that was correct, but it's not. So take another attempt at it. It is actually what we just saw. Tenancy by the tenancy by the entirety. Okay, so when you have married couples, hi David, hi Jaylene. When you have married couples, it is tenancy by the entirety nationwide. There are 9 states which have community property, and Texas is one of them. So out of 50 states, Texas has community property, and the other states have tenancy by the entirety. 2 or more married couples, and they have, I'm sorry, married couples, not 2 or more married couples, okay? Sorry about that. So anyway, and it has survivorship. So there are 3 different types. 2 have survivorship and 2 do not, okay? And so this is the one that has survivorship, tenancy by the entirety, okay? All right, next. So let's go with the definition. Number 252. That's okay, lots of laugh, my bad. So thanks for hanging in there with me. Delayed start. I was a little confused here with the program. All right, the definition. Document recorded in official records releasing a mortgage lien and indicating that the mortgage has been paid off. Okay, I showed you the answer, so hopefully you'll get it right. So the answer here was satisfaction of mortgage, okay? And what the lender will do is they'll provide a release of lien. So document recorded in official records, okay, releasing a mortgage. And they'll provide a release of liens. If the person does not receive it, they need to go and request it from the bank. Sometimes the banks, don't do it. And the individual decides to sell later, and guess what? There's still a lien attached to the property. I had that situation with one of my clients years ago, and ended up having to go through the process, okay, of getting a release of liens. So 253, sealing. What is sealing? Think about it. Oh, I'm trying to show you the answer first. Process of making a criminal history record confidential. So the process of making a criminal history record confidential is called sealing. Okay, so let's see if, I don't know why it's showing me the answer first. All right, so that was sealing. 54, an area of land measuring 1 square mile in government survey system. So there's different types of surveying systems. In areas where there's a lot of wooded area, forest, they'll use the government survey. The other method is what is called lot and block, which we use in communities and cities. So you can type your answer in the chat. The answer is a section. So it says an area of land measuring 1 square mile in the government survey system. That is a section. In a township, you have a township that has 36 sections, okay? And they go and measure, each section is 1 mile by 1 mile. So you have 36 squares, those are 36 sections, and each section is 1 mile by 1 mile. Therefore, the whole township is 6 miles by 6 miles. You know, I'm trying to see why. Answer with definition. That's why. Answer with term. Okay. All right, next. 55. Warranty of title given in a deed that guarantees to the buyer that the seller has the legal right to sell the property being transferred. So what is that term? By the way, in this program, okay, it is, you can actually also see it on Quizlet. I'm doing it from Quizlet. Let me see if I can show you. I'll show you at the end of the class. Quizlet Plus is the program that I'm using. It's online. You can have a membership or you can use it for free. And this is available there. And there are different sets of vocabulary and other questions and answers. Different teachers will post them in there. Okay, the answer here is Seisen. That sounds like a German word. So warranty of title given in a deed that guarantees to the buyer that the seller has the legal right to sell the property being transferred. So that is called a Seisen. And so in order to see, well, it would be a general warranty deed or a special warranty deed. Remember, the general warranty deed, okay, so let's see, David said special warranty deed. Special warranty deed applies when a title is, the title is transferred, right? The deed is transferred, the seller signs the deed. And there are different deeds, a special warranty deed and a general warranty deed. There's also a tax lien deed, which is when they don't pay property taxes, then that's done at the court steps. They're sold for the taxes. But when an owner sells a property, it will either be a special warranty deed or a general warranty. Special warranty deed is for ownership just for this particular owner. Let's say an executor or an administrator is selling the property. Okay, they don't know the history of it, so they provide a special warranty deed. When the title company does a search on the whole history, okay, the chain of title on the property, then it is a general warranty deed. It's a broader search on the title of the property. Guarantee is that every time that it was conveyed, it was clear title and there aren't any encumbrances on any past individuals. But the actual term that they use that says in a warranty of title given in a deed that guarantees to the buyer that the seller has legal right to sell the property being transferred, the one term is Seisen. All right, number 56, 256. Okay. Market condition where there are fewer available properties than buyers ready, willing, and able to buy. Because those are the type of buyers we want, right? Ready, willing, and able. So what is that market condition when there are few properties available than buyers? There's typically two different types of market condition. So take a whack at it. Okay, that is a seller's market. When there are more buyers than there are homes on the market. So since 2019, 2021, and the beginning of 2022, we had a seller's market. And so sellers were getting prices way above list price. Okay. And because why? Also, the interest rates were extremely low, as low sometimes as 2%, 2.5%. Therefore, excellent rates to buy property. So not enough sellers, lots and lots of buyers. That is a seller's market. When there are lots of homes and not enough buyers, then it's a buyer's market. The buyer has a little bit more of a leverage on the seller needing to accept different things. Number 57, foreclosure alternative, where a lender agrees to allow a property to be sold by its owner for less than the amount required to pay off the loan in full. So back in 2005 through 2012, we had a lot of foreclosures. Before they go to a foreclosure, there is what is called a pre-foreclosure, that it's still owned by the borrower and the current market value is way below what they owe. So what is it called when a lender is willing to accept less than what is owed on the loan? It's called a short sale. Okay, a short sale. And it's not that the sale's going to be short. It's just that they are accepting less than what is owed. Very good, Cindy. A short sale. 258. Broker has fiduciary duties to a buyer or seller, but not both. What is that broker? They have fiduciary duties to a buyer or a seller, but not both. That is a single agent. That is what we are. When we represent one client, we are a single agent, a special agent. And so here they said a broker, right? Some states, the sales agent is called a broker, like in Oregon. So broker that has fiduciary duties to either a buyer or a seller, but not both. That is a single agent, a special agent, right? Number 259, the place where property is located. The place where property is located. What is that called? Situs. That's right, David. Situs. That's where the actual property is located, not the physical address, but not the address, because sometimes the address could be a mailing address, right? So this is the actual location. So if the actual location of the property is the same address, then it would be the physical address, right? but the term that is used is situs. Number 60, business conducted by a single business owner, either in their own name or under a trade name. Business conducted by a single business owner, either in their own name or under a trade name. A sole proprietor. A sole proprietor. And what type of ownership would that be when you have a single owner? That would be severalty, right? Oh, I forgot to show the answers. Anyway, you can go back and see the replay and see the actual answers. It's different than selecting multiple choice. Number 61, 261, an agent authorized to perform a specific activity or transaction on behalf of a principal. So what type of agent is that? An agent authorized to perform a specific activity or transaction on behalf of a principal. That is a special agent. Remember I mentioned earlier, so we had a single agent, right? When a broker represents buyer or the seller. And I said, oh, that refers to us as a special agent, is when we also deal with one specific property. So we will be special agents when we deal with one specific property and client, then we are a special agent. Right? It said it's specific activity. The key word to pay attention to is a specific activity, a specific property or transaction, then that is a special agent. A general agent would be like a property manager because they have more than one transactions, more than one property. So that was the key the word there. The difference with the other one, that we were a single agent, is represent a buyer or represent a seller. That's a single agent. A special agent, it has to do with a specific activity or transaction on behalf of the principal. Number 262. Charge imposed by a government entity for the cost of improvement and services such as roads, street, lighting, and library services within the district receiving the benefit of the services. It's a little bit harder, right, when we're doing it this way. So what is it? A special assessment. So it says charge imposed by a government entity for the cost of improvements and services such as roads, street lightings, and library services within the district receiving the benefit of services. So we get special assessments that we pay for with property taxes, right? So it's charged on the assessed value. So this gets you to think and think about it and find out how well you know the vocabulary. It's like having flashcards, okay? You can buy the flashcards, and one side you have the word, the term, and on the other side you have the vocabulary. That's what you're doing here. 263. Property use that does not meet the zoning requirements but is permitted to exist. Okay, property use. So here you have the blue upon versus all the other ones, all the red. Property use that does not meet the zoning requirements but is permitted to be used. A special exception. So an individual, a property owner, if they want to do something a little bit different that is not in the approved zoning or restrictions, they can go and ask for an adjustment. Okay, and they end up doing a presentation at the adjustment board. And the adjustment board has to send out notification. Yes, so it's like non-conforming use. Okay, they're providing something else that is not conforming, and it has to go through the adjustment board to get an approval. It could be like a variance. Okay, they get a variance in order to be able to use something different, and it doesn't impact anyone negatively. All right, legal provision that requires certain types of contracts to be in writing to be enforceable. Legal provisions that require certain types of contracts to be in writing to be enforceable. Statute of frauds. Very good, Cindy. Yes, statute of frauds. Awesome. Okay, number 265. Unlawful and discriminatory practice of influencing a buyer or tenant to avoid a certain areas based on the protected class status of the buyer or tenant or the demographic makeup of the avoided area. So what is this called? So check out the little tab there, right? Marker or pin. And what does it do? A little trail, right? So what is that considered? The pin is guiding somebody to a certain location. What is that? And it's unlawful. No one yet. It is steering. Yes, very good, David and Cindy. Steering. Awesome. Number 66. Land that has been partitioned into 2 or more smaller parcels to be sold for development purposes. So land that has been partitioned into 2 or more, like in the picture there. So it is partitioned from a larger piece of property to be sold for development for single homes. Not always have to be single homes. It could be commercial, depending on the zoning, right? So what is the actual term? It is subdivided land. So as it showed in the picture, the land is subdivided into 2 or more parcels. So you had a big piece of land and they subdivided it, partitioned it. That is called subdivided land. $267. Map of a tract of property that has been divided into individual lots and which shows the size and location of the lots. So this is a map. So what is that map of tract of properties that have been subdivided? Type your answer in the chat, if you can think about it. So that is a plat map, right? Subdivided as a plat map. So in the prior picture, so this subdivision here, before it gets actually worked on, the developer will show a plat map that shows each lot, each parcel. So that is called a subdivision plat map. Number 268. No, meets and bounds. Let's go back. It says a map. Okay, the meets and bounds won't be the map. It'll be the description of the survey. It'll be the details. So the map is when a piece of parcel is subdivided. Okay, how is it presented? Okay, to the planning department. It's presented as a plat map. Okay, as a plat map. So it is not a meets and bounds. That is done with a survey. But good try, David and Cindy. The survey is part of the meets and bounds, right? They're starting at one point and go all the way around the property and put markers and come back to the beginning. So that's a survey, and the descriptions of the survey is the meets and bounds. They do create a map and mark it all up with all the improvements that are on the land, including where the plumbing is located underneath, a fence and such. The survey map, that's different from a plat map. The survey map is going to be on one specific piece of property. Okay, and it'll have then a broader description of what the surveyor did and marked and saw. That's the meets and bounds. So that is the survey map, very different from a plat map. A plat map is for a subdivision that has all the pieces, all the lots. Okay. Kind of like if you ever played Monopoly, right? On Monopoly, you have all these lots. So that board is like a plat map, right? It has all the boards and it has the streets, right? So that's a whole community, okay, of different streets. And then we put all the little houses on one of the streets. So that street, right, has a plat map. All right, 268. Is that right? 267 was a plat map, right? Oops. Sorry about that. So that was the subdivision plat map, okay? So number 68, property is encumbered by a lien which will not be released or satisfied at the time the property is transferred to a new owner. So there is a lien and it's transferred, but will not be released or satisfied at the time the property is transferred. So what is that called? That is subject to. So investors will use this a lot, and I have done it by buying a property that hasn't been able to sell on the market, or the owner needs a quick solution and get out of a situation or prevent it to go to foreclosure. So an investor or someone else can take over the property. It's not assumable. It is taking over the property, leaving the existing loan in place. Okay. And the new person that took over it makes the payment. Title can transfer. Okay. However, the loan does not change name. The loan stays in the original owner's name. So it's a major risk for the original owner if for some reason the new buyer does not make the monthly payment, because now it's on the buyer's, the title, the name is on the title. Okay. And on the deed, however, the loan stayed in place. Okay. Good morning, Carol. So that is called subject to, buying a property subject to the existing financing, existing loan. The loan stays in the name of the owner, but now there's a new owner. So if for some reason that new owner does not pay the loan, it'll be a foreclosure on the individual that has the loan, not on the investor. However, that individual could end up suing the investor. Okay. And it is doable. Many people think that it is illegal. It is not. The deed of trust has a statement on there. So let me go back. The deed of trust has a statement on it that says lender may accelerate, may foreclose. The keyword may doesn't mean they will. They want to continue getting their payment. So if they continue getting their payment, there is proper documentation that is used in order to move a property to someone else, but the loan stays in place. It's not illegal. So if somebody tells you it's illegal, no, it's not. They don't know that it is doable. 269, renting out property that is leased but is not owned. Renting out property that is leased, yet it is not owned. And look at the picture. Gives you a clue. A sublease. Right? A sublease. I'm over here looking at two screens. Okay, so that is a sublease. Okay, very good, David. So somebody is already renting the property and they need to leave, and the lease allows them to sub it to somebody else. However, the original tenant is responsible, right? Number 70. Agreement where one lender or lien holder on a property allows another lien holder to take a higher lien priority. While you're answering that question, I'm going to show some answers that I didn't show prior. So what is that? An agreement when one lender, lien, or lien holder on a property allows another lien holder to take a higher lien priority. A subordination. So you have the primary loan, that's the original loan that has the largest amount on the mortgage. And then the borrower wants to get a secondary loan on that property. So they will be a subordinate. So the original lender allows a subordination. allows for a second loan to be taken. There's a first and a second. Doesn't happen a lot nowadays, but it used to happen a lot. To avoid paying the PMI or MIP, PMI, property private mortgage insurance, they would do an 80-20 loan. Part of the purchase was 80% and the second was 20%. Therefore, they didn't have to put any down payment and didn't have to pay property insurance. All right, that was 270. Okay. Notice requiring a person to appear for legal proceedings. Notice requiring a person to appear for legal proceedings. Type your answer in the chat. A subpoena. Summons? Well, kind of, but not. This is a subpoena. So there was a summons for them to go, right? They didn't show up. And this requires them to appear for legal proceedings. That is a subpoena. If they don't appear, they can be arrested, right? $272. Agreement given by a lender to a borrower whereby the lender agrees to provide long-term financing later in place of existing short-term financing. So this agreement is given to by the lender to the borrower. The lender agrees to provide long-term financing later in place of a currently existing short-term financing. Right? So the borrower has a short-term financing agreement. However, the lender already agreed that they will provide them with a long-term financing. When do you think that that could happen? A takeout commitment. They can also use it as when they're doing a construction loan. When a construction loan is being done, they have a temporary loan. Okay, it's an interest-only loan during the construction, but the lender has already approved that when the construction is complete, then they'll enter into a 30-year loan, a long-term loan. But it's a takeout commitment. That is the agreement that the lender gives to be able to then do a take a short-term financing and then provide the long-term financing later. So it's called the takeout commitment. I was going to say takeout agreement, a takeout commitment. And some of these terms you may never use, okay? However, it's part of the real estate language that we are going to be tested on. It's like when we go to school. A lot of the stuff that we learn, we don't use it, but it's a foundation for the education that we're taking. And to have general education. 273. The total millage rate which a property is taxed. Okay, the picture says low tax, middle tax, high tax. The total millage rate at which a property is taxed. The tax rate. So the millage rate. So they'll charge for, they're assessed, okay, for roads, for schools, for colleges, for the city, county tax, and sewer, trash, things like that. So all the different rates that are charged for each of those items, okay, it's called the millage rate. The property is that is assessed using that millage rate, it's called the assessed value, is used in order to implement the millage rate, and then they come up with the amount of property tax that we owe on that property. Okay, so it is the tax rate, that is the millage rate. And every item that I mentioned, you know, roads, the city, the county, local schools, city schools, public, private schools, different things that we are taxed on. So that's why a lot of people want to live out in the county, because in the county they don't have to pay city tax. $274, legal financial planning tool designed to reduce or minimize taxes. Legal finance planning tool designed to reduce or minimize taxes. Tax shelter. So you see how they have the umbrella? So you're getting tax shelters. When we have investments, you know, we have tax shelters. We get to reduce our taxes through depreciation, okay? And it was 127.5 per year, and they might have increased it now because I've seen them there 36 or 37 years. So it's one of the tax shelters, and we get to write off all operating expenses. Okay, so that was a tax shelter. Financial planning tool designed to reduce minimize taxes. So we want to have tax shelters. You may have a 401k, a Roth IRA, an individual IRA, okay? That's for, you know, having something when you retire that you can live on. A tax shelter, so we don't have to pay so many taxes. Or you can move to Puerto Rico and only pay 4% tax. Okay, 275, the amount of income on which taxes are applied after adjusting for credits, expenses, and deductions. So tax season again, not quite, not right now. So what is that called? Taxable income. You have the gross income, you remove all deductions, okay, all expenses, depreciation, and then you have the net income, right, which is taxed. And as realtors, we can write off almost everything, so that even though we might make a lot of money, we will pay fewer taxes when we write off all the expenses, all the marketing, signs, education, you know, anything that we do that is an expense about real estate, all that is written off. Certain clothing can be written off when we put our logo on it. If it's normal clothing, even though it's professional clothing, no, we can't write it off. It has to have a logo or something that is used only for that. 276. Initial interest rate that is lower than the rate typically available in the market. So what is that? The teaser rate, that's the actual interest rate, okay, that we are getting a loan on. However, the final rate is called the APR, right? Annual percentage rate. So it's called the teaser rate. So if we end up getting a loan and we get an estimate of 5% interest, well, when we going to close, then all the expenses of the loan, okay, are certain expenses are added to the loan balance, and a new rate is come up with, and it's a little bit higher because it includes certain closing costs, certain lender costs. So that is the teaser rate. It's the actual interest rate that we're paying. However, we're actually going to pay a little bit higher because of the expenses, closing costs that are added to the loan and amortized for the 30 years. That was 276. They're teasing you, right? But it cannot be illegal advertising. It has to be true. Okay, tenant remains in a property after the expiration of a lease term. And look, they've got gates on it, right? They're chaining it. So what is that called? The tenancy at sufferance. Now, who is suffering? Type in the chatty chat. Who is suffering in that situation? Yes, it is tenancy and sufferance. However, who is actually suffering? Very good, Cindy. The landlord. That's correct. It is the landlord, right? Because the lease expired and the tenant is now a squatter, right? So tenancy and suffering, it's the landlord that is suffering. Because now he's got to go through the process of eviction, and that costs money. So 278. A tenant has the right to use and occupy a property without a fixed rental term, such as a month-to-month lease. Okay, so tenant has the right to occupy a property without a fixed rental term, such as a month-to-month lease. What is that called? What is that term? Tenancy at will. So it's like a month-to-month lease. However, they can cancel without any reason, okay? The lease. Okay, it's not a fixed term lease like 6 months, a year, or 2 years. It is called a tenancy at will. It's a month-to-month lease. Number 279. Real property ownership together with at least one other person where there is no survivorship. Okay, there is no survivorship. Okay, ownership together with at least one other person. So that means it's 2 or more with no survivorship rights between the co-owners. What is that called? Tenancy in common. That's what you used earlier, Cindy. Tenancy in common. You have two or more without survivorship. Because when you have two or more with survivorship, it'll be joint tenancy. Okay. So it is tenancy in common. Cindy, joint tenancy has to meet 4 conditions. It is 2 or more. However, it has survivorship. Joint tenancy has survivorship. Tenancy in common, they have something in common, but there is no survivorship. Okay, so when it has 2 or more with no survivorship, it is tenancy in common. When it has 2 or more with survivorship, it is joint tenancy. So in this case, no survivorship, meaning if one person dies, their share goes to the other person, then it is joint. Okay, when there's no survivorship, it doesn't go to the other person, their ownership. It goes to their heirs. Okay, when it's joint tenancy and it has survivorship, then whoever dies, their share goes to the other partners. Yes, tenancy in common goes to the heirs or whoever they leave in their will. So remember, no survivorship, tenancy in common. So they have something in common. Survivorship, joint tenancy. So let's see, there's a question here. Is it the same tenancy entirety? No. Tenancy entirety, Sonia, hi Sonia, is for married individuals. Okay, tenancy by the entirety is for a married couple. In Texas, that is called community property. So tenancy by the entirety, married, okay? Married couples. It can't be just individuals that act as they're married, okay, and they're not married. So it's not tenancy by the entirety. However, after so many years in Texas, they can become community property, right? Common law marriage, and they could qualify for that. So 280. Oops. Oh my gosh, what happened here? Oh, never mind. That is, I thought that was the term. Ending point. What is the ending point? So here you're going to be dealing with a survey. So what is the ending point? The ending point of something. Sorry about that. What is the ending point? Well, I had already showed it to you. Terminus. Terminus. So in a survey, you start at one point and you end at the same point, right? That's the original marker. So they call it the terminus point. The ending point is the terminus point. I haven't seen that word much at all, or that might be the first time I see it actually. Okay. And that's all right, but it's something that we are learning in the vocabulary. That's why I keep repeating vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. It's crucial. Okay, 281. Having made a valid expressing last wishes before dying. Having made a valid expressing last wishes before dying. What is that called? Testate. So they expressed their wishes before dying. They made a testament, a testate, right? And they do that in their last will. It's the last will and testament. Will and testament. Yes. So it's called, they have what? Their testate, right? They have a will. So having made a valid expressing last wishes. So they made their statement, right? Their testament before dying. And they put it what? In a will. So when they die with a will, that is testate, right? Without a will, within, intestate. Without, within, intestate. 282. Type of real property ownership where the ownership right is defined in terms of time, but may continue indefinitely as those periods arise. So type of real property ownership where the ownership right is defined in terms of time, but may continue indefinitely as those time periods arise. So what do you think that, what kind of a, see, life estate, says Sonia. Timeshare. I was kind of thinking as you. So type of real property ownership where the ownership right is defined in terms of time. So they could have it for 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, but may continue indefinitely as those time periods arise. So they can have it for years if they keep paying the maintenance fee on that property. So they own the timeshare and they can use it every year as long as they keep paying that time, the maintenance fee, and it can be indefinite. That is a timeshare. That's why they showed this picture here. They're going on vacation. And what timeshares are used typically on vacation or on business. You know, they have it, they can have a timeshare which is in different countries, different areas, not just the same location. Oops, what the heck did I do here? I feel bad. That one got me too. Oh, what happened here? Oh, I forgot what I did with this screen. Okay, so ownership of real property. Ownership of real property. What is that called? So ownership of real property. Title. So when you own real property, we have title to it. Yes, we get a deed. The deed is conveyed from the seller to the new owner. But the ownership of the title of the property is called title. So we have a title to the property and we purchase title insurance to make sure that the conveyance didn't have any encumbrances. Look, like when we own a car, we get a title, right? And the deed to that title, okay, has a lien holder on it. Ownership of real property is called title. So let's see. Sonia had said that's a life estate. Ha ha ha. Okay, timeshare. Yes, it seems like a life estate. However, yeah, this one, the way that was defined, Type of real property ownership where the ownership right is defined in terms of time, but may continue indefinitely as those time periods arise. So it almost sounds like a life estate, but a life estate is until the person passes away. Okay, so it does have a deadline. So 283 was title. So ownership of real property, not type of ownership, right? But ownership of real property. Number 284, area of land measuring miles on each side, 36 square miles on a government survey. I mentioned this earlier in the session when we were talking about sections, right? One section is 1 square mile. So what is actually in a government survey, 36 square miles? Very good, David. Township. Very good. That is a township. It is 36 square miles, right? There are 36 sections, and each section is 1 square mile. So you have 6 times 6. Very good. Number 285. An imaginary line in the government survey system running east and west, parallel to baselines, okay, which are 6 miles apart and create horizontal strips of land called tiers. So we're in the government survey, okay? So what separates one township from another? So you see running east and west, which are 6 miles apart and create horizontal strips of land called tiers. A township line. So you already had the term township, right? So that baseline, okay, it's called the baseline, which are 6 miles apart. So there's one township and another township below and one above, and that creates a horizontal strip of land called tiers. So you have baselines and meridians. Meridians running vertical. So let me show you the answer again. Township line. Okay, so the key word there, and of course you're not going to answer it this way, and you're going to have multiple choice in the exam. However, the key word here was 6 miles apart and creates a horizontal strip. So each township is 6 miles, wide and 6 miles deep. And so the horizontal line, which is called the baseline, okay, is the township baseline, the township line. All right, number 286. A business name that is something other than the name of the person or entity doing business under that name. So business name that is something other than the name of the person or entity doing business under that name. So instead of using your name, you're using something else, another name. So what is that called? A trade name. A trade name. So we would have to get a DBA, right? Yeah, so it's a trade name. It's the business name and we would get a DBA. So yes, it could be an LLC, it could be a corporation, so not just an LLC. So the business name, okay, it says the business name is not necessarily an LLC because it could be any other type of corporation. So it is the trade name. So luxury realty, okay, that's the trade name, instead of using John Doe or Mary Doe. $287, a broker who provides limited representation to a seller, buyer, or both in a real estate transaction, but does not represent either in a fiduciary capacity. So broker who provides limited representation to a seller, buyer, or both in a real estate transaction, but does not represent either in a fiduciary capacity. Transaction broker or facilitative broker. Yes, it would be an intermediary. However, they call it a transaction broker because it says broker who provides limited representation to a seller, buyer, or both. So they can represent, they can have limited representation to one, but they don't offer the fiduciary capacity. So they're a transaction broker, okay? Or facilitative broker. You can have a transaction coordinator that's different. This is a transaction broker. So broker who provides limited representation to a seller, buyer, or both in a real estate transaction, but does not represent either in a fiduciary capacity. So they could have an associate broker. So that is a transaction broker. They're going to facilitate the transaction, okay, but not represent either party. A contract that a court could not require a party to perform under. A contract that a court could not require a party to perform under. So what would that be? Unenforceable. So that is an unenforceable contract. Contract that a court could not require a party to perform. Okay, so they somebody wants to sue, they take it to court, and the judge says it is unenforceable. I cannot enforce that contract. It's an invalid contract or it's a void contract. If something is not right on the contract or it's illegal, it is unenforceable. 289, a set of professional ethical guidelines for appraisal services. Set of professional and ethical guidelines for appraisal services. Uniform Standards of Appraisal Practice, USPAP. Uniform Standards of Appraisal Practice. So US PAP, Canons. No, not quite. So uniform standards of appraisal practice. Mix up, yes. All right, number 280. That was 289. So that is a professional set of professional ethical guidelines for appraisers, not for realtors. Okay. Appraisers are licensed by a different organization than by TREC, right? So 290, contract that requires only one party to perform. Contract that requires only one party to perform. You should be able to answer that one if you look at the picture. Nobody answering? Wow. Interesting. A unilateral contract. Okay, only one person is having to perform. Very good, Sonia and David. I just didn't give you enough time, right? A unilateral contract is where only one person is performing, and that's during what? The option period of a contract. It could be, 1 day, 3 days, 5, 7. That's when they do their inspections or their due diligence. Number 291, an agent with authority to perform all transactions which may be completed by the principal. An agent with authority to perform all transactions which may be completed by the principal. Type your answer in the chatty chat. A universal agent. Okay, that's when you're a property manager. Okay, you can have more authority to perform all transactions which may be completed by the principal. No, special, okay, keyword here. Okay, Sonia, it is not a special agent. This agent has the authority to perform all transactions. A special agent performs activity on one transaction, one property. Okay, so special agent is one property, one specific situation, one specific transaction. Oh, yes, that happens. So when you can perform, you have authority to perform all transactions. They probably give you a power of attorney. You collect rent, you pay bills, you can help them get a loan. That is a universal agent. Okay, universal. They have more authority than a special agent, much more authority. $292. A mortgage insurance premium collected at closing on FHA loans. Mortgage insurance on FHA loans. So the picture gives you a little bit of an idea. Come on, somebody type an answer. It's called mortgage insurance premium, MIP. Okay. And it's paid upfront and every month. Mortgage insurance collected on closing on FHA loans. They do collect some initially, and then it is paid throughout the loan. Mortgage insurance. So the keyword was insurance on FHA loans. So FHA loans, it's mortgage insurance premium. On conventional loans or others that are not FHA, it's PMI, private mortgage insurance. So the indicator of the number of vacant rental properties in a market. Indicator of the number of vacant rental properties in a market. So what is that? Indicator. Vacancy rate. So how many vacancies do you have? What percentage of the units are vacant? That is the vacancy rate. Are 10% vacant, 20%, 30%? To get a loan on a commercial property, they're going to ask for what is the vacancy rate? How many properties are vacant? Indicator of the number of vacant rental properties in a market. Vacancy rate. Contract that contains all the essential elements of an agreement: capacity, offer and acceptance, legality, and consideration. So a contract that contains all the essential elements of an agreement: capacity, offer and acceptance, legality, and consideration. A valid contract. Okay, a valid contract. So valid contract contains essential elements of an agreement. It also has a, start date, end date. So some examples are capacity, offer, and acceptance. Everybody has signed. There was an offer, amount of money, an acceptance. There's a consideration, right? But that consideration doesn't have to be money. It can be a promise to pay. It can be an exchange. And it's legal. Okay, that was another keyword. So it is a valid contract and it can be enforced in court, right? Right. Number 295, process of arriving at an estimate of value for a property. The process of arriving at an estimate value for a property. ARV. Anybody else? Valuation. Valuation. Yeah, so ARV is all part of the evaluation. It's a type of valuation. So the process of arriving at an estimate of value for a property is the valuation process. All right, number 296. A lease that does not have a fixed rental rate And instead, the rental rate is determined by some formula or change in index rate, such as the consumer price index. No answer. A variable lease. A lease, so it says it's a lease, right? That does not have a fixed rate, and instead its rental rate is determined by some formula. So a variable lease. Capital lease is basically for capital equipment. Okay, this is not this lease. Okay, the interest rate, I'm sorry, the amount of rent varies based on how the economy is changing. So they have a variable lease. Landlord wants to make sure that they're getting enough money if the market keeps increasing, and also maybe their cost is increasing. If they're paying, all the utilities, there are other things, taxes are going up, insurance is going up. So they provide a variable lease. Number 297. Exception to a zone requirement that is allowed for so long as the current owner remains the owner of the property. Exception to a zoning requirement that is allowed allowed for so long as the current owner remains the owner of the property. That is a variance. Grandfather, no. A grandfather is if the zoning completely changes, okay, from commercial to residential, and there was a little store there that's been there forever, then, and the others are converted, that property is grandfathered in. It was changed from commercial to residential. Once that building is sold or it burns down, then it'll change to residential. But a variance, and so exception, this was an exception. Grandfathered in, it is not an exception. It was already there and it continued as is if a zoning changed. But this is an exception to a zoning requirement, okay? So they're doing something now, or they want to change something that is allowed for so long as the current owner remains the owner of the property. So that is a variance. However, let's say they requested to add an additional garage on the property. Let's say that, it's a little bit of an acreage and it doesn't impact the value of the owners, or it doesn't impact and interfere with the aesthetics. They'll go to the adjustment board and request a variance. There's a letter sent out to the community right around that property to see if there's anybody opposed to it. They have a little hearing. Each side can present, and then the adjustment board can approve, okay, the variance from the zoning requirement. However, some of those variants remain. I mean, if the owner sells and there is a new garage on there, they're not going to tear down the garage, okay? It remains there. So certain variances, it's not just during that owner's ownership, okay? It can go on for the life of it. It becomes a permanent variance. However, let's say they tear everything down, burn. They go back to the original zoning requirements. If that garage burned down and now the new owner is building a new home, they want to add a garage, they now have to go and apply for an adjustment. They have to apply for a new variance. So that's when it would only remain with the prior owner. You know, in that condition, it had to burn down and they have to ask for it again. Okay? That's a little bit different. So grandfathered in, it already existed and the zoning changed. And so just a comment on one of the prior ones. Let's see, Sonia had mentioned ARV, okay, when we were talking about valuation. And I said, yeah, that's a different type of valuation. So that's if an investor buys a property and they repair it, that is after repair value. So I just wanted to finish that with Sonia. So it's not the normal valuation of every property. Number 298. An agreement that never becomes valid or enforceable. So that agreement, it can never become valid or enforceable. You're welcome, Sonia. So what is that? An agreement that never becomes valid or enforceable. Void, right? Big letters in the picture there, right? Void. It's not a voidable contract. It is void from the beginning. My sound is gone. Oh, not sure why. Does everybody else hear me? Because Sonia says her sound is gone. May have to do with your computer. Number 299. An agreement that initially appears valid and enforceable, but becomes unenforceable due to non-disclosure of a material fact, mistake, misrepresentation, fraud, undue influence, or duress. Thank you, Ala. Yes, you can hear me. Very good. So an agreement that initially appears valid and enforceable, but becomes unenforceable due to non-disclosures of a material fact, mistake, misrepresentation, fraud, undue influence, or duress. What would you call that kind of an agreement? Voidable. Very good. Very good, Allah. Allah or Allah, one of the two, not sure. Misrepresentation. Oh, no, 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 no. No, David. Let's go back. An agreement. Misrepresentation is not an agreement, okay? It's not disclosing something correctly, okay? Or it says it's due to misrepresentation, okay? So the agreement is a type of contract, and it's due to misrepresentation, a mistake, material fact, or forcing somebody in duress, okay? Or, telling somebody, hey, I'm going to beat you up if you don't sign this, okay? You know, like when the mafia days, right? They push you and they use fear to get somebody to sign a contract. That's a voidable contract. The person didn't voluntarily, sign that contract. They were under duress, undue influence. So it becomes unenforceable. It was valid, but it becomes unenforceable. They can take it to the court and the individual can say, hey, I was forced to do it. I had a gun pointed at my head, or they said they were going to beat me up, or they were going to hurt my family, or, whatever the issue may be. Or there's a bad mistake in the contract, right? It doesn't have a terminated period. Well, that would be void. It would not be a valid contract if it doesn't have a deadline. So something was incorrect in the contract, then it's voidable. Okay. So it was a good contract. However, it became voidable. It was voided for one reason or another. Like you see the guy right there? He tore up the contract because something was wrong. 300. Assurance given by a seller to a buyer in a deed that the seller will defend the buyer's title right in the real property. So, you kind of say, okay, okie dokie, right? I'm not lying. I'm telling everything. I have all the rights to sell this property. So what is that assurance given by a seller to a buyer in a deed that the seller will defend the buyer's title right in the real property? Warranty. A warranty forever. And so they get a warranty deed, right? It can be a special warranty deed or a general warranty deed. And in order to provide that, a title search is run to make sure that there are no encumbrances, right? No liens, no judgments, no mechanics liens, any type of liens, okay? Or any unrecorded easements, or somebody is encroaching on the property, okay? The property is clear and they warrant that it is clear, fee simple, bundle of rights, and they have all the rights to convey that property with a warranty deed. So they will get the assurance given is a warranty forever. So if they said the instrument that is given, that would be the warranty deed. Right here is that, hey, I'm giving you my word. I am warrantying it forever. Okay, that in a deed that the seller will defend the buyer's title right in the property. So that is an assurance, warranty forever. Let's say they're doing the deal themselves and they're not going through realtors, contract title companies. They do the documents themselves and they go record it. So that owner is giving them the assurance, okay, that I can sell this and I'm transferring all rights to that property and conveying all rights to that property to you. And I will defend it, okay? When individuals shook hands and followed their word, gave their word, and their word was gold, nowadays, that's hard to get that, okay? It really is, unfortunately. Okay, 301. Local law or regulation that determines how properties may be used. Local law or regulation that determines how properties may be used. Not a good thing to go with this question. Anyway, it works. There's different type of use of property. So what are the local laws or regulation that determines how properties may be used? Zoning ordinance. It is one of the police powers, Allah. Okay. Zoning ordinance, it falls into one of the police powers, right? But it's the ordinance. The zoning ordinance is the local law or regulation that determines how properties may be used. Zoning laws, zoning rules, zoning ordinance. So before we build something or we buy a property, we want to make sure we know what the zoning ordinance, zoning rules are, zoning restrictions, all that. Oh, wow. Way to go. You've reviewed all the cards. Okay, so I said at the end, I would let you know where I use this, and you can actually get these flashcards. All right. And they also have it. And so this is in Quizlet online. And they also have it in multiple choice if you want to do multiple choice. Okay, they have it this way, and you'll start from 1 to 301. So I chose to do the more difficult one, okay, and that is to do the flashcards, because a lot of times you buy flashcards, right, to study your vocabulary. You get the term and you study the definition, or you get a list of vocabulary and it has the term and it has the definition. However, on the exam, okay, you will have a multiple choice like this. And you can take this test online, okay, and you see how would you rate this set? I would rate it awesome, okay? So it's Quizlet Plus. You can't see it on the top. Let me minimize this. Let's see here. Okay, you can go to Quizlet Plus and study vocabulary. Okay, so if you go to, like, I chose my library, and so I set my category. Okay, but if you go to home, you can find different types of study material that other individuals have put on here, teachers have created. All right. And so there's questions, real exam vocabulary for Florida. I mean, it's not on every state or everything, but you can find different material that someone maybe presented on here. There is a paid version, but this one is free. Okay. So if you don't have flashcards, all right, you can come in here, okay, and use somebody else's flashcards like I did. There's another set that has like 400 and some out flashcards. So your guide to everything that you need to know. So I recommend that you go to Quizlet Plus and check it out. Okay, there's a lot of free resources online that you can study. And so let's see what Allah says. Awesome. Thank you for making these videos. Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you. I'm glad that you're enjoying them, and hopefully they help you prepare for your exam. Thanks bunches for the flashcards and information. Yes. So it's taking a little time to open here. Opening document 100%. Okay, so there's here, you know, teacher's guides. So just go ahead and go to, if you want to, you know, check out other things with Quizlet, go to Quizlet Plus and see what is available there for you to study. Okay, it's another resource. Just don't overwhelm yourself with a lot of different material. Okay, because you already have a lot of material that you've learned and that you're learning. So don't overwhelm yourself by going to so many sites. However, you can research, okay, and pick what works for you, because there are a lot of, I wonder why. Yes, Quizlet Plus. It's called Quizlet.com. Let me see. Quizlet.com is the main website. So Sonia typed it in, Quizlet Plus. Okay, and the website has it as Quizlet Plus latest, and you can go on there and copy and paste the link that you can go to the website. Okay. So this is what, you know, I'm talking about here. Now, the books that I use, those I cannot share with you. I do have permission to use the books that I'm using. And so you'll be seeing a disclosure on my videos from now on for the ones that I use from Stephen Medling, okay, which is the most recent book that I was using. Okay. All right. So any questions before we call it a day, and you can go and take a break and do some more studying or go and enjoy your weekend. If not, in the meantime, remember that this is Wow Lillie Handy coming to you from YouTube Agent Prep in San Antonio. So if this is your first time to my channel, or if you haven't been to my YouTube Agent Prep channel, please go to my channel, visit it, tap that subscribe button. Okay, subscribe so that you're the first, and also click that little bell so that you're the first to get notified anytime that I go live or I upload a video. And tap the thumbs up. There's quite a few of you here on YouTube already. So tap that thumbs up. Okay, let me know that you enjoy the video. Send me some love and help my analytics, okay, my search engine optimization, get more credit. Okay, I optimize the channel. But when you show love by watching my videos, commenting, putting a thumbs up, subscribing, YouTube will then promote my channel more. And eventually I may earn some money from YouTube. That is another way to earn multiple streams of income. Okay, that's why people also post a lot of free things. I enjoy this. I've been doing it for over 9 years. I started out in an office, the old fashioned way, okay, in person, and then graduated to Facebook, and then finally learned how to share on Facebook and stream. Then I learned how to do YouTube and then stream to different media. It's amazing, okay, the growth of what I've done by tutoring, okay? So I enjoy tutoring. I appreciate any feedback, any comments down below, okay, that you can recommend. On the comments below, I have links to books that you can purchase on Amazon, books that I use or other books that I recommend. If you're from other states, you can purchase from the same author, Medling. There's other books, and you can buy them on on Kindle or some other book that you can see online, or you can buy the book itself. Okay, some old books are still really good for studying national, and if the state hasn't made any changes, old books are still good, and you can get them at a discount. Okay, so you don't always have to buy everything brand new. You can buy things at a discount. Save your money until you're starting your business. There's a lot of great material out there. My favorite books are those that provide answers, explain answers to the questions, and others that include vocabulary. Because as today, vocabulary, and more vocabulary, okay? Learn the language of real estate so that you can better answer the questions and be able to answer them much quicker. It's tougher doing it this way using flashcards. That's usually what they offer for you to buy, right? So you get the term and then the definition. And then you can do, like here on Quizlet, test yourself by doing a multiple choice one. All right, y'all. So if you have any questions, hey, reach out to me. Text me, make a comment on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Messenger, and I get back to all comments personally. I reply to them, and I enjoy this, and I wish you the best. So just remember, YouTube Agent Prep with Wow Lillie Handy coming to you from San Antonio, Texas. But I'm helping anybody nationwide when it comes to national, and I'll be purchasing some books for other states that request it. All right. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later. Thank you for attending and participating.